ever feel like your body is moving in slow motion while the rest of the world is just stuck on 2x speed? We often call this laziness, right? But actually, it's your nervous system trying to save your life. You see, we live in a culture that treats productivity like a religion, and rest is treated like a sin. From the moment we wake up, we're bombarded with messages telling us to hustle harder, dream bigger, and just move faster. Our screens are filled with people who seem to have it all figured out, while we might be struggling just to find the energy to answer a simple text, you know? It's heavy, isn't it? That thick, sluggish feeling that makes every task feel like walking through waist-deep water. We tend to judge ourselves so harshly when this happens. I mean, we really do. We listen to that inner critic that tells us we've lost our spark, or that we're somehow falling behind a race we never even signed up for. But we want to invite you to look at that heaviness through a different lens today. What if that leaden feeling in your limbs and that fog in your mind isn't a sign of weakness, but a sophisticated emergency brake? What if your body is actually being incredibly smart just by forcing you to slow down? We're so used to viewing ourselves as machines that need to be optimized. But together, we're going to shift that perspective. We're going to decode the secret language of your fatigue and explore how your brain chooses slow as a vital survival strategy. It's time we stop fighting against our own nature and start understanding the profound wisdom behind why we feel the way we do. We're going to peel back the layers of our biology together, moving away from the shame of not doing enough and toward a more compassionate understanding of what it means to be human in an overwhelmed world. Because once we understand why our bodies are putting on the brakes, we can finally stop the internal war and start finding our way back to true, sustainable peace. We've all been there, you know? It's mid-afternoon, the sun is still up, and our to-do list is staring us down like a predator. But instead of tackling it, we're just staring at a wall or scrolling through our phones with a heavy, leaden feeling in our limbs. And almost immediately, that voice starts. You know the one. It's cold, it's judgmental, and it uses that one specific word that cuts deeper than almost any other. Lazy. In our current world, we've been conditioned to believe that our worth is directly tied to our output. We live in a culture that treats burnout as a badge of honor and hustle as a personality trait, right? Because of this, we've developed a collective fear of standing still. We feel like if we aren't constantly moving, producing, or achieving, we're falling behind, like we're failing. This creates what we can call the internal trial. Think about the last time you felt exhausted, but forced yourself to keep going. When we finally do collapse onto the couch, we don't actually rest, do we? Instead, we put ourselves on the witness stand. We cross-examine our own fatigue. We ask ourselves, do I really deserve this break? Did I work hard enough today to earn 20 minutes of peace?
Well, we find ourselves guilty before the trial even begins. This shame is incredibly heavy because it frames a biological need, the need for rest, as a personal flaw. We start to believe that our bodies are our enemies, or that they're somehow broken because they can't keep up with the frantic pace of the digital age. We tell ourselves that if we just had more willpower, or a better morning routine, or more discipline, we wouldn't feel this way. But we have to ask ourselves, why does this shame hurt so deeply? It's because the lazy label ignores our humanity. It treats us like machines that just need a software update, rather than living, breathing organisms with complex needs. When we judge ourselves for being slow, we're actually ignoring a massive amount of data our system is trying to send us. We've spent so long listening to the demands of the world that we've forgotten how to listen to the wisdom of our own design. Because here's the secret we're rarely told. Laziness, as we've been taught to define it, almost doesn't exist in the way we think it does.
usually it's a mask for something much more profound. So if we aren't just being lazy, and if we aren't actually failing the test of productivity, then what is actually happening deep inside our nervous systems when we shut down? Intrigued? Why does our brain decide to pull the plug, even when we're screaming at it to keep going? To find that out, well, we have to look past the shame and into the hidden mechanics of our own survival. You know, this brings us to a concept that might just change how we view our toughest days. In the world of psychology, we call it functional freeze, and it is truly our body's hidden guardian. Think of our nervous system like a high-tech security system, right? Most of us are familiar with the classic fight or flight response. That's when our internal alarm goes off, our heart races, and we're ready to tackle a problem or run from it. But there's a third, much quieter option that we often mistake for laziness or a lack of willpower. This is what we call the freeze state, specifically the functional kind. To understand why this happens, we have to look at something called the polyvagal theory. Now, don't let the name intimidate you. I mean, think of it like this. We have a massive nerve called the vagus nerve that acts like a two-way superhighway between our brain and our organs. When we feel safe, the highway is clear and we're in social engagement mode. We're creative, we're connected, and we're present. But when the world demands too much from us, when the emails keep stacking up and the noise of life gets too loud, our nervous system realizes that fight or flight isn't going to save us. We can't fight a deadline, and we can't run away from our responsibilities. So our body does something incredibly brilliant. It pulls the emergency brake. It enters a state of dorsal vagal shutdown. It's essentially the human version of safe mode on a computer. We're still functioning. We're going to work, we're making dinner, we're nodding our heads in conversation, but the lights are dimmed. Our body has prioritized our survival over our productivity. It has decided that since we aren't setting boundaries with the outside world, it's going to set a boundary for us by slowing our internal systems down to a crawl.
We aren't broken when this happens. In fact, we're actually working perfectly. Our body is being a loyal protector, shielding us from a total burnout by forcing us to conserve energy. It's the ultimate stay of execution for our mental health. The problem is, most of us try to power through this freeze state. We drink more caffeine, we shout at ourselves in our heads, and we try to force the engine to rev when the brake is still slammed down. But you can't shame a nervous system into feeling safe. If we want to get back to that fast version of ourselves, we have to stop fighting the slow. We have to learn how to communicate with this guardian and let it know the coast is finally clear. But that leads us to a very important question. If our body is in safe mode, how do we actually restart the system without causing another crash? Because, as it turns out, there's a very specific sequence we have to follow to thaw out, and most of us are doing it completely backwards. Well, to start that thawing process, you see, we don't really need a sledgehammer to break the ice, right? What we need is a gentle, consistent warmth. We found that there are 3 specific tools we can use together to guide our nervous system back to a place of connection and movement without causing another system crash. The first step is what we call radical naming. We've all been there, right? Lying on the couch, staring at a mounting to-do list, and feeling that heavy, heavy cloud of guilt. Our internal critic starts shouting, "You're being lazy. You're falling behind." But when we practice radical naming, we change the very vocabulary of our soul. Instead of saying, "I'm being lazy," we tell ourselves, "My nervous system is currently seeking safety." It sounds simple, I know, but this shift moves us from a place of judgment to a place of curiosity. We stop seeing ourselves as broken and start seeing ourselves as protected. By acknowledging that our body is just doing its job,
We stop the internal war, which is often way more exhausting than the work itself. Once we've changed how we speak to our inner world, we can move to the second step, microdoses of slow. You see, we often think we need a week-long retreat or a total life overhaul to recover, but our brain actually responds much better to small, frequent sensory signals of safety. We can take just 5 minutes for sensory grounding. This might look like focusing entirely on the weight and texture of a soft blanket against our skin, or really noticing the steam rising from a cup of tea. These microdoses, they act like a lighthouse in a storm. They send a clear biological message to our brain. The threat of the hustle is over. You are here. You are safe. We're essentially teaching our body that it's finally okay to land. Finally, we have to learn to honor what we call the minimum viable day. On those days when our body chooses slow and we feel that safe mode kick in, we have to renegotiate our contract with productivity. We decide on the absolute essentials, the things that keep our lives functioning, and we consciously let everything else go. The firmly but kindly, the key here isn't just doing less, it's doing less without the internal trial and jury. We're giving ourselves permission to exist without earning our right to breathe through a checklist. I mean, we have to treat our energy like a battery that needs a slow charge, rather than a machine we can just kickstart.
By using these 3 tools, we aren't just waiting for the slow period to pass. We're actively building a bridge back to our fast selves. But even when we start to feel that energy returning, there's a quiet fear that often holds us back. We find ourselves wondering, if we start accepting this slow version of ourselves, will we ever actually be successful again? Or are we just giving up on our potential? Well, it turns out the answer lies in a paradox about high performance that most of us have been taught to fear our entire lives. The truth, the one we often miss, is that success isn't a constant sprint. It's a rhythm. We've been conditioned to believe that if we let ourselves slow down, we're essentially giving up on our potential. But in our journey toward healing, we start to realize that the opposite is true. We don't lose our edge by resting, we sharpen it. We really need to understand that our bodies, they aren't trying to sabotage our goals when they demand a slower pace. They're trying to protect us. When we're in a state of burnout or chronic stress, our nervous system is actually essentially stuck in a survival loop. It feels like we're driving with the emergency brake on, right? We can keep flooring the gas, but all we're doing is burning out the engine. Reclaiming our natural rhythm starts when we finally stop fighting the slow and start honoring it. We have to create a space where we feel safe enough to move at all. Think of it like this. A seed doesn't grow faster because you yell at it. It grows because the environment is right. By giving ourselves permission to be still, we're finally providing the right soil for our energy to return naturally. One of the most powerful ways we can practice this is by embracing what we like to call a minimum viable day. On the days when our energy is at a 0, we don't force ourselves to hit a 10. We ask ourselves, what is the absolute smallest thing we can do to feel human? Maybe it's just 5 minutes of sunlight, or just making sure we're hydrated. These small wins signal to our brain that we're safe and that we're still in control, even when we are performing. The paradox is beautiful. By honoring the slow, we actually regain the capacity to live fully. We stop living in the gap, between who we think we should be and who we actually are. When we stop punishing ourselves for being human, the energy we used to spend on self-criticism is suddenly available for actual living. We aren't falling behind,
We're recalibrating for a version of life that's actually sustainable. We want to hear from you. What does a minimum viable day win look like for you lately? Is it a short walk? A quiet cup of coffee? Maybe finally putting away the laundry? Share your wins in the comments so we can celebrate that progress together. And if this perspective felt like a deep breath for your soul, we'd love to have you join our community here at Psyche Unveiled. Go ahead and subscribe for more gentle insights as we continue to navigate the complexities of the human